Nik Turner, Director of NTEsports, Specialist in Esports and Education, Consultant at Yoyotech, and Advisor to many, many different organizations that I think I don't have time to list them all because, I don't think the podcast would end if I had to list them all. Thanks so much for coming on to the Polo Lam Experience to share your knowledge and what you're up to other educators around the world. So thank you so much, Nik. Now we have a tradition on this podcast. Okay.
Hit me with it.
Where ChatGPT has some quick fire questions for you. So are you ready?
Okay.
So people get to know
as ready as I'll
Nik.
ever be.
So people get to know who you really are, behind the director and the owner sort of thing. So it's a lovely one. So let's go. Football or rugby?
Football.
PC or console gaming?
Console. No, PC. PC in reality, console at home.
Okay. I'll ask you more about that. Yeah. Solo play or team player games?
Team.
Team players. Okay. City or countryside?
Countryside.
Countryside. Okay. Tea or coffee? I know that one.
Oh, both, but ultimately coffee.
Coffee. Oh, I'm surprised because you said you told me just now you made the tea.
I drink both. I love a cup of tea, but if I had to go without one, it would be tea, and I'd go with the coffee.
Okay, nice. VR or AR?
AR.
Okay. Fortnite or Minecraft?
Oh, I'm going to be honest here. Guilty pleasure, Minecraft.
Okay, lovely. And that's the end of the quick fire round. Thank you so much, Nik. Oh, it was a good one though. Yeah. So I want I'll have my personal interest. Why AR over VR? In your opinion?
Well, it's interesting. That is very much a personal thing for me and the way that I experience both. I'm one of these people that kind of like struggles with VR. I think it's amazing. I think it's wonderful. However, it's not like a vertigo thing. It's just I get very kind of woo and lose myself in it to the point whereby I find it uncomfortable. So I'll quite often take it off. So I like it in small doses. And so that's the main reason. It's because VR doesn't suit me. It's probably the way
You're not the first person. Like even for me as a person who promotes it to small doses usage, because I do this for marketing purposes. So obviously nobody's there for an hour. I don't promote it for people to stay on it as long as possible. I get that as well. Like for maybe after 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I already get like the same feeling probably you get. Like you take it off and you feel like a little bit drowsy, maybe even you don't feel like eating. You lose your appetite kind of thing. So I get that.
And I think if I'm exploring a world within VR, that I can do that for quite a long time. That's fine. It's if I'm trying to play a game, then that makes it really difficult.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of whoa. Whereas if I'm just in somewhere, kind of like looking around, then
it's okay.
I could do that for a lot longer. I really enjoy those sorts of things, and kind of a lot of that these days in terms of education, like history and when you can go back into these old places, hundreds of years. I mean, it's an experience. That's something I wished that I'd had when I was at school, and I've had no doubt I probably would have ended up doing history. But we didn't. So, I think that's a really good use of VR.
Thank you. Let's start with some of these main questions that I had for you.
Yeah.
I really would love to know who's Nik, and ultimately, I go very deep here. What is your dream, Nik?
Okay, right. So, who am I? I mean, I'm kind of. I'm a near 50 married family man, and whose life has changed considerably over time for lots of reasons and generally positive reasons. So, as a youngster, I went traditional education, did A-levels, studied at university, did a postgraduate diploma to train as a broadcast journalist. But I also went travelling, and I made the effort after university. I thought, right, go travelling after university, because if you don't, you'll go straight into your career and it won't happen. So I spent a couple of years after university travelling around, and kind of I went to Australia for a year on my own, with that deliberate decision to go on my own, thinking if I can live in Australia, if I can live in Australia on my own.
Strawberry picking or something?
Do you know what? I managed to avoid the fruit picking. I did do some interesting jobs, I'm not going to lie. I think the worst one I ever did was I was soldering components for microchip boards, which I found really tedious. But I had some really good jobs as well. I worked on a sailboat in the Whitsundays, and my job literally was just to keep everybody happy. So I had every 3 days we'd have 20 new travellers, backpackers had come onto the boat, we'd sail around, I'd be diving 3 times a day, taking people out diving. Nice. And then in the evening, there'd be my responsibility to make sure everybody had drinks. Obviously, I had to drink with them. So it was kind of like partying consistently and living on the boat for free. Bit of washing up, I had to do a bit of washing up. But, those kind of experiences that you get when you're travelling that you kind of a few and far between in normal life, I think really kind of developed me into the person that I am, because while I always thought, I'm going to go back to Australia and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, I also knew that the reality of life in England might mean that will never happen. I have been fortunate to go back to Australia a couple of times, and we did consider at one point whether or not to move out there, but to move, but then sort of then children come along, and then that changes everything. Yeah. And so over those years, it's like my priorities have changed. My dream is just for the family to be happy. It's as simple as that. I think anyone who's got children, that moment you hold your first child, and your whole life change, everything in your life changes, because suddenly you have something that you're responsible for. 100%. I don't know how long that lasts, but that kind of that desire to look after and kind of just have a happy family, and so kind of work-life balance is really important to me, and making sure that the kids can do things that that they like doing. So that would be the dream. But all the way through my career, and it's been fairly varied, my career, in 2 main chunks. I've always kind of got that traveller adventure. And I think, again, it's kind of like the entrepreneurial side of me. I did do business studies as an A-level, and I thought I'd never use again. And actually, I'm still using the things that I learned then today. But it's that kind of it's that drive to do something different, to push forward, to do things that you wouldn't normally do, to go outside your comfort zone. When I hopped on the plane to Australia, I didn't know where I was going. I had a flight to Sydney, bought a Lonely Planet book, and then while I was on the plane, had a look through Sydney and decided where I was going to go catch the bus to when I got off. I had nothing organised, but it's like, I kind of liked it. I got there and decided I was going to go to Manly, so I had to get the bus to the harbour. So then you're going past the Opera House, getting the bus to this kind of beach resort. And I arrived on the other side, got off the landing, and there was a bar next door to it. So I was like, wow, it'd be rude not to. So I was sat and had a drink, looking across Sydney Harbour, thinking, okay, probably it's 5 o'clock. I should find somewhere to sleep tonight. And that was the start of it. That was the start of the adventure, and that's kind of how I live my life, really. Every opportunity that you get, you need to take. The amount of times when I was travelling, not just in Australia, whereby I was asked a question, or somebody said, "Did you want to do this? How do you fancy that?" Every time I would say yes. And every time it led to something else, and some of the amazing things that I did in my time traveling were based purely on me making a split decision, random decision, and saying yes to somebody. And then the next thing, you're kind of 3 weeks down the line, you're doing something completely different in a different part of Australia, and thinking, how did I get here? But if I hadn't said yes, 100%. I think lots of people are scared. Lots of people are quite scared to kind of it's not what I had planned. It's different to what I'm was going to do, and which is exactly why I went to Australia on my own. So I had complete control of my decisions. And I think kind of, as yourself as an entrepreneur, I think that's an important part of being an entrepreneur, is that
100%.
They're my decisions. It's up to me. If I choose to take on a client or I choose to not take on a client, I do it on gut feeling, brain, heart,
even
whatever.
Even this podcast, coming on this podcast,
Yeah.
you said yes. I proposed. You said yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's sort of like, why not? And we have these discussions, and it could just be, it might be in 2 months down the road, somebody's watched the podcast and somebody's dropped me an email. Oh, I've just seen you on the podcast. Did you want to chat? Did you see what I mean? There's all these things happen, but they don't happen if you don't make them happen. I'm a firm believer of fate and making your own opportunities. Just getting on and doing things to start with is a pretty good place to start.
Nice. So would you say that your dream right now is maybe to go back into that travel mode and maybe like but a longer version of the travel you're doing since you had your children, of course?
Do you know what I think? In an ideal world, yes, that would be the case. But the reality of life, the reality of my children. I have a 16-year-old profoundly autistic son, and obviously there are all sorts of additional concerns, things over care, and making sure that he's looked after, that a lot of people maybe don't have to think about. So I've always got that, and I've still got my youngest is 9. And then you think, well, by the time he goes to university, if he goes to university, I'm going to be this age, and da, 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 da. But I have no doubt that in retirement I will be doing lots of things that that retirement are designed for.
Okay.
I don't see myself sat around watching the telly.
Have you ever considered, like, I don't know, homeschooling? So then you take back kind of control, and maybe even said it, because I know I know a head teacher who has a VR school. And literally, you can pop on your headset.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I think see, it's quite interesting. And I got into quite a heated argument with a parent of another child with special educational needs about homeschooling. But for me, I think homeschooling it will always be right for some people. And in that right situation, it's fine, it's great. I think if you can avoid homeschooling, personally, I would, purely on the basis that the social side of being at school, the things that you learn through interacting with people of your age, people that are slightly older, people that are slightly younger, discipline from teachers and relationships with people above you in that hierarchy. Yeah. When you're homeschooled, you don't have any of that. And then, in education, I used to see a lot of sort of 16-year-olds that are homeschooled, and they would come into college and they would just really struggle to integrate. Not all of them. Some of them like duck to a water, but a lot of them really struggled with that social interaction and just integrating with people in their class. And you could see why. So yeah, no. I think it sounds nice. And when we obviously went into,
I was just thinking about your dream, to be honest, like. So they can have the best of both worlds, kind of thing.
Yes, God, that's actually something I never thought about. Polo, but when they were younger, I could imagine like chucking them on the back, and I know people that have done that as well.
I've seen news. Like, I don't know how I don't know how they did it, but it must be possible because there are people who actually do it.
Yeah.
And now there are more possibilities because there are online schools, the VR school that I mentioned, that's like a proper Ofsted accredited school. So you could, you can have them at school. You don't have to homeschool them, but you can have them online. And then after school, they will be in a different culture or, experiencing crazy things that other kids just wouldn't have.
Those possibilities are 100% there. And like you say, with VR these days, even more effective is probably the best way to put it. It's like, I mentioned it in the opening bit in the questions. The possibilities that VR opens up are endless. And when we first started to introduce VR at my old college, I was genuinely surprised, couldn't believe the additional things that we were, started to do with it, as opposed to the reasons that I thought, that we bought the kits in the first place.
For example?
So I introduced games design into the curriculum. I was head of department at an outstanding Ofsted college, and I introduced games into the curriculum, and we got, as part of that deal, we were given some money to buy some VR kits, so we bought the VR kit. But in my mind, it was very much for games design, for use within that, but also, it's a great marketing tool. Let's not hide that fact that if people come in and they want to come to the college and they can have a go on it, that works really well. But once we got in there, then we were talking. It then got on to kind of like uses for things like medical care, history, sport we're using, and they're doing some amazing things. And and my wife did some work with VR at a care home for people with dementia. And and again, that kind of like all of those applications of VR that you just most people they just think that. No, I hadn't thought about until we got the kit, and then we started to explore it. And at that point, this was probably 10 years ago, so it was quite.
Yeah, but it hasn't advanced too much from 10 years ago. Let me tell you, because I've been in there. I started around not 10 years, 7 years, 8 years ago. And it's still like people are still trying to figure out, as you say, the application.
What the best ways to use it? Yeah.
I've been to school fairs, uni fairs. I go there with my VR headset with the marketing content where I show the student experience of another school or university, and I start talking to marketing directors and mission directors that are there. I show them this experience, and they're like, oh, we can really use this to show our Paris campus, because obviously we're here in Madrid, and there's no way of really telling them what living in Paris is like, and this could be brilliant. I'm like, how is it possible that after 10 years nobody thought about this? And there was nobody in the whole fair that was using this for this purpose. There were VR glasses, headsets for, as you said, like education, medical stuff. They were doing like simulations, those sort of things. But then there are so many other applications that people have not really dived deep into yet, and I find that very interesting as to why. Is it maybe because we haven't been promoting it? Or, I don't know.
And it's sort of like you mentioned at the start of the show. One of my roles is I work as a consultant and as an account manager for Yoyotech, and we attend the Bet Global show every year in Excel. And again, it's the biggest tech show in the world, and we don't get much time to have a wander around because we're so busy on the stand, but we do get to have a wander around, and I think kind of like what you said about it's been 10 years and there's still VR stands at Bet, but when I'm looking around, I'm not really seeing much more than I did 10 years ago. In terms of, they're all kind of like it's the same sort of thing, and that surprises me, because then you've got something like esports, which 5 years ago in education didn't exist, other than a couple of degree courses.
That's the main topic.
But with and then like 5 years later, you look at the advances that have been made. Just for Yoyotech and the arenas that we build and the solutions that we have and the software that we're using and the furniture that we're building. All of those things, and that's just come in a 5 year period. And then VR has been around for a lot longer, and it's the curve seems a lot steeper, right? Than
it's
what
giving me an advantage. It's giving me an advantage because I've been able to learn, because I started this business, the Sell VR, straight out of uni. I had no clue. So you went to Australia, but I went to Tenerife. I was half building the business, half traveling and figuring out my life and learning Spanish, all sorts of things. And so I've been doing it that slowly that I thought, okay, if it were other technology, there would have been so many other competitors already. But because it's been so slow, kind of thing, VR, that I'm still very early in comparison to many many other businesses who are trying to figure out what to do with it. So yeah, there's the advantage there as well. Okay, it fits really well into our next question, which is, what was the story behind? Is it NTEsports? How do you even say it?
NTEsports, yeah, NTEsports.
Okay. And Yoyotech,
yeah, so
how did it all come about? What was the story behind it?
Yeah, so it's one of those. Again, it's one of those make the most of your opportunities. So originally, I had my first business when I was 24, which was a broadcast business working in radio. So we did news and sport to radio stations across the UK, from 6 studios, 24/7. We did like marketing, radio adverts, lots of things, and I did that for quite a long time. But that was really hard work in the sense that I was up at 4 o'clock every morning because I was on air at 6.
Wow.
And then I'd finish an on air shift, but then I'd have to do the business side. So I was doing kind of like a ridiculous amount of hours. There's only so long that you can do that before you just go, oh, do you know what? It's time for a change. So I went into education, which came through by chance because I was working at a local radio station, just doing producing a sports show. And the presenter said, oh, I do some teaching at this local college. Did you want to come in and do a guest talk? I said, yeah, I'll come and talk and do a thing about radio. That led to them offering me a part-time job as a lecturer in radio. Wow. So I started doing that. Within 6 months, I was put in charge of the media department. Again, by that point, I'd had experience of running a business for, so it was quite there. You were building a business while so I closed the business. No, I'd closed the business, and I was actually working for an online tile retailer, as their operations manager and financial manager. And then so I got this opportunity, started to teach. Thought, actually, I quite like this because I'd set up training courses in my radio business that had won awards for training journalists and things. So started doing that. And then, like I say, within about 6 months, I was kind of running the media department. Then that turned into a permanent position as head of department. I then took on music and performing arts. And then I noticed this gap that IT or computing as an area hadn't had a leader for a little while. So I said, give it to me. Let me take it on. So I took on IT. So I had media and IT. And the reason I did that was because I knew I could then bring in games design. And I wanted to bring games design into the curriculum. And I had the skill set of the staff to teach it. So I did that and set up, so then we had quite a big department. And in the meantime, I was approached by an esports organization who were looking to get into some sort of like educational realms. Okay. So I started working with them on their advisory panel board. And then after I was head of department for 10 years at the college. And I decided to jump out of education. And I'd made the decision that the paperwork, the administration had actually taken away my love of teaching, which is really kind of sad to say, but I used to resent teaching because I had so much paperwork to do. So I decided to jump out of teaching and went and worked full-time at the esports organization to set up their education academy. Okay. While I was there, I was then approached by somebody from a local college, good friend James, who wanted me to consult on an arena that they were building at his college. Now, at this point, I didn't know that this new qualification was coming in. And I'm looking at these plans going, in a million years, the college are not going to build an esports facility like that in your college. And he confirmed, he made it very clear. He said, no, this is happening, Nick. We're doing it because there's a course coming out. And we've got the funding to do it. And I said, well, if you do build this, you do realise you're going to have to employ me. And then that was that. That was that, really, because then he then realised that I had been head of department at another. So I had all the educational experience and the esports experience. And then I went and joined Queen Mary's College. And it was about 6 months before they officially launched their esports facility, which was the first in the UK for esports at a further education college. And it's an amazing facility. It really is. It's it was the best place to work ever, in terms of just like that environment.
It was a dream.
It was. You sit there sometimes going, I can't believe I'm working. Like, this is just too cool. So I did that, and it was Yoyotech who built that arena, and it was their first arena that they'd built. And that was the start of Yoyotech as an esports education solution provider. Previously, Yoyotech was a B2C high-end gaming manufacturer. So they used to make great gaming machines. They had some really good esports teams back in the day. They've been around for about 20 years. And then a company called Centerprise International, who are a large kind of IT reseller company, bought Yoyotech. And I think, this was before my time, but I think they weren't 100% sure what to do with it. And it just evolved. And then that evolved into esports and education. And so for the last kind of 5 years, Yoyotech have solely done that. We specialize in giving colleges, universities, schools, or private facilities that solution whereby we can do it all from the furniture. We manufacture the furniture locally to our base. We build the PCs, and we can offer all of the peripherals and the chairs. Any building if needs, if building work needs to be done, we'll organise everything, and we've got the software management, with the exclusive UK licensee for GG Circuit. So we've got everything there. So it's developed from that side. And originally I was head of esports at Queen Mary's College.
Yeah.
So I was teaching, and so I had this experience of kind of like delivering the new degree in this amazing space. And then I sat on the outside of Yoyotech, and then I started to work externally as a consultant, and just kind of people would come to me for advice on arenas or the education, the curriculum. And then I kind of like, if you're looking for an arena, I know these guys. So let's go and we'll have a chat with Yoyotech. So that's how that started. And then in December last year, I decided to leave Queen Mary's College. And so I did 2 days now in the office with Yoyotech as an account manager. And then the 3 days, the rest of the time is on NTEsports, which is where this conversation started. We got there in the end. So NTEsports just came around through demand. I spotted an opportunity kind of about 4 years ago when I just sat there and went, how many people are experienced in education and work in esports? And there's sort of like, there can't be many of us. And it turns out there wasn't many of us, like on one hand.
One hand. One hand.
Yeah, it was literally, and so that kind of, it started from there, and that people were constantly wanting things from me. So I'm like, oh, this is great, but I'm spending a lot of time, and also, I actually could be earning money. And the same thing is like teaching resources. People didn't know, people didn't have teaching resources. How do they teach esports? Which I kind of saw, I'd seen that would happen. So I started to create these resources that were quite nice, and started to put them onto TES, which is where loads of teachers go to buy their resources. That rapidly turned into something that I'd never expected it to be. I think TES, I'm on about 10,000 downloads from there.
It's a platform for like courses or something.
Yeah, like for teachers, it's for resources. So if you were going to teach, let's just say you got a new job, and somebody said, "Oh, you've got to go and teach about the Battle of Hastings," and you're like, "I know nothing about the Battle of Hastings." The teachers will often then go in and just search Battle of Hastings, and then teaching resources will come up, like PowerPoints, presentations, tasks, activities that you can buy to use for your teaching. So I did that with esports, and slowly built up quite a, I've now got a lot of resources.
You were the only one. They said, and it was your name popping up.
So when you search in esports in TES, and there's page after page, that's nearly all me. So that was one element, and then obviously other like clients would just come and ask for information, and so NTEsports just grew out of itself. And again, like we said, like honest belief is that you've either got that entrepreneurial thing in you or you haven't, and it's fine either way. And I always have. So I saw that as an opportunity to, well, okay, it's been 15 years since I had my last business. Let's actually create this, do this properly. And then the work became kind of like so busy that I could afford to stop teaching and do kind of, like I say, the split between NTEsports and Yoyotech, which I mentioned earlier about life balance. And it's, I really enjoy the life balance of being at home 3 days a week, 2 days a week in an office where I get to engage with people, work with some amazing talent, have feet on the ground, things like going to do an install, when we're putting an arena in. I never used to do that. So I used to help set up the contracts and the deals, but I never was like hands-on, and never, half of the arenas that I've been involved with, I've never seen. Whereas now I get to be part of all of those processes, and, you see the end result of the work, and, and it's great. And, Yoyotech just go from strength to strength in terms of what we do and how we do it. And like every arena, every install just feels like it gets better. And the same this week, we're at installing a first university installation.
How many schools in colleges have you guys done so far, more or less?
Yeah, so I think we're in about 25 in some capacity at the moment. And we've got, we did our first independent school, which is last year, which is now seeming to be very popular with independent schools, because they're kind of, it feels like they've recognized the link between kind of like esports and traditional sports. So if you look at some of these independent schools that have really good, cricket facility, rugby and hockey and all of those traditional sports, but there's 25% of the pupils who aren't interested. They don't want to play physical sport in that. It's just not their thing. Most of the people, actually. So they're not, so they're kind of like, they've got this group of youngsters who are disengaged with extracurricular things. And then generally those 25% also just happens to tally in with the highest 25% of people who want to game and compete in esports. So they've worked out that you can now do esports and they still get to learn all of those traditional skills that they developed through rugby and football, like teamwork and communication and strategy and all of those things, but they can do it within an esports environment. But you've also got a situation whereby it's completely inclusive. So it doesn't matter on your academic ability. It doesn't, you might have social needs or special educational needs or boy, girl, race, gender. Age. It doesn't matter. Really,
you're an avatar inside the arena. You are.
That's it. And they're on a level. And, something that one of the things that I absolutely adore about esports and working within esports and education is the journeys that I've seen develop over the time, whereby you have students who are so lacking in confidence, hardly hear a peep out of them, but they're crack at Overwatch or whatever, and then they'll go in and they get into the team, and then the next thing they kind of like become one of the best players in the team, and then they go on to the student championship finals, compete on stage, win the tournament, and get most valuable player, and then they come back to college a completely different person because they've got that respect from their peers. Exactly, literally walk through the. I remember like there was the winning team that came back after winning the first division. The Overwatch title. They came back into the college, and like everybody just stopped and was like, whoa, like clapping and cheering, and and we also had two girls. You will
see some football guys or rugby guys who they're the lads. They come back with winning mentality, whatever. It's the same, right? Wow.
And then they came back with a whole new sense of self-worth and self-esteem and self-confidence.
Exactly.
And it's like, it's. Yeah, you can't. And do you know what? You can't. You can't kind of. You can't put a figure on that. You can't. You can't grade that. You can't do that. You have to experience it and go. Do you know what? Esports and education has served you like with a life lesson and skills, a development of skills that you wouldn't have got anywhere else. So that's one of the reasons why I love what I do.
I love that. Like literally, that was the question I was going to ask, which was the relationship between esports and education, which is still very niche. Like, let's be honest, like not most schools don't have an arena and never mind an esports team. And I actually want to ask you, with all your experience talking to, of course, directors, educators, even parents, for sure, you must have.
Lots.
Your parents. What are they, if there are, stigmas around gaming, children, addiction, the
online safety,
and all this stigma around it. So how do you explain to somebody who's listening, obviously, and think, okay, it sounds great, we do want those who are not doing the traditional sports to do something that can help them with self-confidence and teamwork and all this stuff that you mentioned. How do we not get around it, but explain in a way where almost the positive should outweigh the negatives side of that?
That's a really good question, Polo, and one that, luckily I think I can answer fairly well, in the sense that when I was working at the esports organisation, we were trying to build that education centre. We were dealing with parents, but what are they going to do to it? They can't just play games for their whole lives, and that was kind of like, going back 10 years. And then over the last, especially when the BTEC was launched by Pearson, in conjunction with the British Esports Association, then now Federation, I think, you have to hold your hat off at that point for the job that British Esports did in educating teachers, head teachers, decision makers, and parents in explaining why esports is a valid thing and why we should be studying it in education. Now, obviously, they can't do it all themselves, but they created a structure and an environment whereby colleges and teachers could. And, again, luckily, because where I was at QMC and the experience that we had, we worked really hard to do all of those things that you just said, Paolo, just
to convince them
to try to remove the negativity. So 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when we were talking about games and education, it was all about, is there a link between games and murder? Like, you can't play violent games because if you play violent games, you're going to go and kill somebody. That was the big thing, that was the moral panic at the time. I mean, we have come so far since then. So now you're dealing with, like, staying up all night, drinking Red Bull, African links, dark rooms, all of those things, and sort of like, and shouting and throwing your controllers and your PCs against the wall in raid. They're the kind of like the negative things of gaming that parents see, and it's a thing. So when we built the facility at QMC, we also had, like, next to it a yoga room, a Pilates room, because a big part of the qualification is health, well-being, and fitness. We then look at all the other things involved in gaming, things like online safety, the way that we manage Discord and those things in terms of our teams and our students. I mean, one thing that we noticed at college was, if you walked around the college at 9:00 in the morning and you've got kind of like students, you all right? You awake? Yeah. Playing last night? Yeah, I was grinding till 4:00, a bit tired. Whereas the esports students were coming in quite fresh. And the reason is that they'd learned very quickly that, like, grinding for 20 hours a day is not the way to improve your gameplay. It's not, that is not an efficient way of improving the way that you play.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. You get, like, pro athletes don't play 22 hours a day. They'll train for maybe 4 to 6 hours a day, because there's only so much your body and your brain can take in. And beyond that, you're wasting your time in terms of getting better. You might be enjoying yourself.
You're not productive.
So,
you're not productive.
Because you're not productive. It's the same. We've all been there. If you're revising for exams, and you reach kind of like hour 14 and you're looking at it, but you're not taking it in. It's not working. So you kind of had that. That's the first one, was to get rid of those kind of misconceptions about gaming and the fact that part of the course is to it works on ensuring that these stereotypes aren't carried forward. The second element would be that the course isn't a gaming course. We are not teaching you how to be better at any game. We're not teaching you to become an esports pro athlete. We're teaching you about the industry that exists. And then that leads in nicely to the next bit in terms of convincing parents, in that there are lots of careers available in esports for your children. And when you start talking to them, and we used to, a really quick, simple example would be, because they'd come in at opening and say, well, what is esports? So, right, okay, that's fine. So this is esports in a nutshell. Imagine football. You know football? Yeah, good. Right, World Cup final. 80 million people are watching it around the world. It's in a stadium. In that stadium, you've got 80,000 people. Within those, you've had to market it, you've had to sell the ticket, you've had to admin all of the stuff that goes with it. You've got referees on the pitch, you've got VAR sat on the sidelines, you've got the broadcasters, the TV people that are there in the stadium filming. That's then going out on networks where all the IT people are sending it out to this, that, and the other. Reverse back into esports, it's exactly the same thing. You've got 80,000 people in a stadium watching big screens. That's being broadcast to more people than are watching the World Cup final. There's 150 million people watching the League of Legends World Finals around the world. That money is there. When you start talking about those figures, the audience size, people go, okay, so there has to be money in here. Esports isn't monetized as effectively as it should be or could be or will be. But either way, another good example is cybersecurity. If you think about esports, if you're in like the world finals at League of Legends and somebody hacks into the server and brings it all down, that's the same as 25 soldiers walking onto Wembley at half time, picking up all the players and taking them off. Yeah. And so there are so many jobs, there's so many careers. It's not about being a professional gamer. Video production, marketing, branding, event management, coaching, physio, nutrition, all of that. They're all in esports. And for 20 odd years, entrepreneurship is a really good example for esports because of the nature of it. There's opportunities everywhere for entrepreneurs to set up their own businesses and start generating money. But for the last 20 years, all esports has done is grab people from other industries. So all of the TV crews, they've just grabbed them from sport. Really angry. All of the IT people, they've just grabbed the IT. The data analysts, they've taken from the
commentators
as well. Commentators, shoutcasts. That's what I mean. So what this course is doing is essentially it's the first generation of students who are going to come out with transferable skills, but those skills are based around the esports industry. But they can take them to other industries, so they're not excluding. It's not like, well, if you do an esports course, then you can only get a job in esports. If you're doing a video production course, nobody says, oh, well, that means you can only go and make music videos, because video production can take you anywhere. And esports is exactly the same.
You can be an influencer, you can start your own company, you can, as you're saying, do many, many things. I really love how you explained it. And now I'm getting the idea in my head that, okay, so the course itself is more about educating them about the industry, inspiring them into thinking, okay, so what could I do within this industry? But then at the same time, obviously, have fun and, participate and game and be in the team and get trophies, just like you would do on a football team or on a rugby team, right? So I really love that. And I love the fact that it almost seems like, okay, so I come to you as a head teacher and I'm like, okay, I want to build one, but I need to convince the parents. What do I do? And you say, the first thing we teach them is basically to discipline the kids and for them to understand all about the bad things about you gaming on your own, going until 4 a.m. in the morning.
The social isolation and, those things, and COVID, because we pretty much came off the back of COVID, and so we had that to deal with as well. And gaming was a really good platform. And when you're talking about kind of like other social issues like gender, sexuality, race, all of those things that need talking about, esports is a brilliant vehicle to do it. because everybody has their experiences. Everybody has their things. It's particularly sort of like, for example, girls who might want to play Call of Duty, and then they go in, and then the minute that
they get abused,
people they find out that they're a girl, they say, so I don't talk. I go in and play and don't talk, and my gamer tag wouldn't tell you whether I'm a boy or a girl, because the minute they find out I'm a girl, they just start getting abused me. You shouldn't be playing this. You should be playing Fortnite or whatever. So it's a really good vehicle for kind of like debate and discussion over lots of different
conversation, right?
Yeah.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting, and I love the fact that that's where the attention is, right? That's where a lot of young people are, like, they're already there, so there's no point in ignoring it. You might as well educate them.
Yeah,
right? It's again a social media debate. It's very similar, right? It's what do you take it away from them, or you try and or have some extra curricular activities to try.
And we're so I've got a 9-year-old, and he's reaching that point whereby he wants a phone. And it's like, right, okay, think very carefully how you deal with this one, and it's one of those things. It's like, he's not going to get a phone yet. He doesn't know that yet, but it will be a while. But you can't then not give it to him at the right time, and as long as he's aware of what he's doing and how he's doing and what that means, and the responsibilities that we're going to put on him by having a phone, and the fact that we will be able to see everything, all of that, all of those sorts of things. And then in terms of kind of like decision makers within education, when you're trying to convince people to invest money in a Yoyotech arena, for example, there's another couple of things to think about. First one being esports facilities within education settings are no different to AstroTurf pitches. So like 20 years ago, people are getting AstroTurf pitches in. Why? Because they can use it for PE at school, and then they rent it out in the evening and they monetize it in the evening. And an esports arena is no different. So at QMC, we used to kind of rent out on a Saturday birthday parties. And we might have 4 birthday parties, where you're charging an equivalent fee for what you would expect, £250. That's £1,000 every Saturday on birthday parties. Boot camps, where teams are used to being trained and coached online, and all of a sudden at half terms or holiday time, they get an opportunity where they can all be in the same space in the arenas with their coaches, with their teams to bond and team build. Business events, talks. When we were talking about convincing parents, we used to go into schools to talk to pupils and their parents about why they should think about esports, to convince them, but you can do that within those spaces. So that's kind of like one element in terms of monetizing the space. But the second element is you think about that immersive environment that we're in, and they really are just that. The minute the lights go out and you've just got your LEDs and your computers and everyone's like, it's like the coolest thing. And what that does is it engages students who otherwise wouldn't be engaged. We had NEET students, not in education, employment or training, who came out of being NEET. They left school at 16, didn't do anything when they should have been doing something, came back into education at 17 because they wanted to
do something with their life,
do the esports. And you've got this, all of a sudden you've got this engagement, and higher engagement produces better productivity. Attendance rates are really good. And that's for the learners, but at the same time, the teachers are the same. If you're teaching in a space that you
love,
think
like where you're working, right?
You just, and I remember I did a LinkedIn Live for the Esports Trade Association, and I was sat in the arena at work. And before we went on, like, they're kind of looking in the camera going,
"Where are you, mate?
Is that a background? Is that a background?" And I've just sort of like got up and started to walk around. I was going, "No, this is." And they're like, "Oh, that's your office." I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, wow, that was amazing."
Oh, it makes our work look so rubbish.
Right? But it's and it's the same. It's sort of like, so the teachers, I used to love going into work and teaching in those spaces. So yeah, it's you do have to convince people, but when you've been there and done it, you realise what a win-win it is. And like just how important like these facilities that Yoyotech produce are.
Leading to our next question. So I'm imagining that to install one of these arenas is very costly. I'm imagining. So there will be a lot of listeners, especially those who in Spain or in Latin America, who are Spanish speakers, and who will never be able to imagine having one at theirs. So if I wanted to start something, anything to try, start the conversation, the debate, as you were saying, on almost no budget, imagine. And I really want to get into the esports curriculum and, related to the school. What would I do as a headmaster or a teacher to try to introduce that, to just, start the conversation?
Yeah. Okay, good. So where the way that it works with Yoyotech is that a school will come to us and say, we're looking to do this. This is what we're looking to achieve, maybe, or this is our budget. What can we do with that? And there's loads of different, because we do everything bespoke. We design everything individually. That nothing is off the shelf. It's built. It's like I say, it's designed and manufactured in a factory in near Reading. The computers are PCs we build in Caerphilly in Wales. So everything is customizable. We can change anything and try and work it for the client. If you were on a position whereby you have no money, then there's a couple of options for decision makers. One being, obviously, you can, within education, there are funding opportunities available, especially when it comes to new digital tech. Okay. These funds do exist. They are out there, and I know some colleges will employ somebody and their sole job is to find these funds and apply for this funding, which is what we did at QMC. We applied for funding and built the esports facility that way. So you have that element to it. Another element is potentially for, depending on the centre's relationships with local companies and local tech, there are opportunities for, if you've got a company that deals in IT, they might give you 15 keyboards for some element of sponsorship for that space. They might give you 15 mouses, headsets. And if you go to a few of them, or you might get lucky and get one, and you might find yourself, hang on a minute, all of a sudden I don't need to pay for any peripherals because I've been given them all by a generous local company who want to be involved and be part of this because they can see the potential.
I love that entrepreneurship. Click that.
Because,
I love that.
Because of the marketing opportunities that it brings. So, for example, when after QMC set up our arena, every time there was anything esports in the news, anything, it didn't matter what it was. They're going to do the Commonwealth Games. They're going to introduce esports to the Commonwealth Games. BBC, Sky, straight on the phone. Can we come and film in your arena? Yep, of course you can. Okay. It's publicity for us. They've got somewhere to go. And it looks cool. So there's plenty of marketing opportunities. So that's another way. Another opportunity is that there are ways to do things yourself and save yourself a lot of money. Now, in saying that, it will never be as good in the real sense of the term of, right, here, this is Yoyotech's arena, and it's like, whoa, because everything, it's designed for its purpose. You don't see cables, cable management, the lights all match and work. We've, over the last 4 or 5 years, we'd like to think anyway, we think of everything. We've got everything covered. But if you've got no budget, you've got no budget. It's as simple as that. So if somebody turns around and says, look, we want 6 machines and all the setups. It's like, right, okay, what's your budget? It's like 10 grand. Okay, right, so 10 grand, your PCs, we can get your PCs for 10 grand and a bit less. We might reduce the spec slightly. Excuse me. But we're going to struggle with the furniture. But if you buy, bearing in mind, a lot of the time these spaces are dark. So if you put black panels, like you can go to B&Q or Homebase or, any of these things, or order it online, Amazon, and you can get like some nice funky paneling that's black and plastic or whatever that's relatively cheap for the walls. So you slap that on the walls and you've created a nicer looking space. Desks. You can get normal desks, but you can get them in black. So you get black desks. You
black.
can buy LED strips. You put your LED strips in and around, underneath the desks or whatever. So they're not aesthetically nice in the sense that ours are all like embedded within the edge of the furniture. But in the dark, it's still going to light up. It's still going to look effective, and the students will like it.
Yeah.
So there are cheaper ways of doing it yourself if you're a bit inventive. And I know a couple of colleges who've done just that and achieved some remarkable results with it. To be fair, I'm also aware of like another college who bought everything themselves and bought it on the cheap, and within about 3 months, like all of the keyboards are broken and there's no keys left on them. So ultimately, you do get what it's the same as anything in life. You get the quality that you pay for, but you can certainly, it's not there's certainly ways around certain things, and ultimately, if your PCs are working and they're doing the job in terms of your gaming and your monitors are okay, you can work stuff around those. So they're kind of like, probably potentially the most, the fundamentals. Whereas other colleges might be, no, actually, it's more the look we want. We're not that worried about the spec on the PCs or the things. As long as they'll play the games, and they would rather spend the money on the furniture because that's the environment. Yeah, that's the environment they want to create.
Love that. I really loved your entrepreneurial idea. I mean, basically to get the schools more entrepreneurial and think about sponsorships.
Yes, think like a business.
Yeah. But it must do. It must be. Right?
Honestly,
I'm astounded by how many schools don't think.
Yeah, I know. Right? I spent like I say, I was like 10 years head of department, and the red tape was so frustrating. And because I kind of like think like a business, and I couldn't understand why we weren't doing certain things. And sometimes I used to kind of like just go ahead and do them and then know that I'd get into trouble, but I'd deal with the consequences later because I knew that it would work and ultimately they would be like fine with it. Yeah. They just wouldn't be happy for the fact that I didn't spend 2 years going through a process to get there. So I was seen as a little bit maverick, maybe, for education, but not in the real world, and that's what I love about Yoyotech is that there's no, it's a fast-paced moving industry, and Yoyotech are on everything and will change and we can adapt like that. And, and somebody's got a good idea. Brilliant. Let's do it. As opposed to, that is a good idea. Let's have a meeting in 2 months to discuss it. And then we'll get it signed off at a meeting 2 months after that. And, 6 months after you've had the idea and you've almost forgotten about it. Yeah. So, yeah, I think schools, unfortunately, I appreciate the requirements that education has to have for lots of things, health and safety, safeguarding, all of those things. But I do think a lot of schools and colleges miss out on a lot of things because they don't think like a business.
100%. Wow, I've learned so much just within this hour conversation, honestly, like about esports, about what schools can do, with the arena, not just even the education side, but business side as well. Learned so much, honestly. Nick, thank you. My last question for you. What's next? What are the objectives for you, yourself, and for Yoyotech, and obviously your own business? So, yeah.
I would say potentially for the first time in my life, which comes with age, like when I had my first business, my radio business, like I loved it, but it was an adrenaline fueled, junkie rush of ridiculous hours and hard work. But I loved it, and I was young. I was in my 20s, and things change. Your outlook starts to change in terms of life. And I'd say right now, like as of like today, I'm probably in the best space I've ever been in terms of work-life balance and enjoyment and, happiness in what I do. I go and do things with the children at the weekend. I'd take the dog out for a walk. I go away for weekends. I go, I take holidays, not, massively, but, I do go on holiday, which is things I never used to. So, I've reached a stage right now where I'm really content, and it's such a nice place to be. It's it's a joy, and that's kind of like, so where I'm going at the moment, I suppose, is as long as I'm sustaining my lifestyle in the sense that I've got money to pay my bills, pay my mortgage, to keep a roof over the house. That's baseline. But what I've started to do now is I'm so passionate about esports and education that, and it's given me so much that it's time to put something back. Okay. So I now sponsor 4 teams actually. It's 4 teams that I sponsor. One in Chicago, Take Back Control, who set up by a 14-year-old, Travis Smith, who's an amazing little kid, amazing little entrepreneur. So I sponsor those guys and kind of help them out financially, to watch them develop, and then offer them kind of like part of the deal is like almost as a mentor.
Love that.
To teach them about business and like these are the things that you should be doing. And they come to me, sort of like, I think he's 15 now, sort of like, Nick, I want to do this. What would you advise? And then you give them the advice. That's part of the deal. I've got Control Esports, who I've sponsored for like 3 or 4 years now here in the UK, that were originally a bunch of students of mine. They're now not my students anymore. But I still sponsor those guys. And we were at Insomnia, big gaming festival, a few weeks back. And they're all there competing in Valorant, and I went along there and, with my son and met them all and watched them, and, so that's really nice. I still sponsor my old college team as well. So like just give them money to help them with things like shirts. And then I sponsor CDE Sports in Kenya. And so that's another completely different branch, if you like. I'm doing a lot of working on things in the background for esports in Africa to try and give them a better platform, for speaking, and hopefully it's not easy, but hopefully we'll be able to do something, by the end of the year, we'll have something more concrete that I can talk about. But part of that, through that process, I've met, like Wesley, and then again, opportunities, Paolo. I was chatting with Wesley, and I thought, God, what? I really like this guy. Like, he's really switched on. And then 2 months later, he moves to an esports team. I chat to them. We talk about this, that, and the other, and then I agree a sponsorship deal. So I've, sponsor those guys and for all their merchandise and apparel, and they've got a big launch event, a big brand event, which I'm kind of funding, because it gives me pleasure. I like seeing young talent, thrive and achieve in what is a really competitive world. And when you've got your Man Cities and your Man Uniteds and your Barcelonas and your Real Madrids of football, it's the same in esports with your Fanatics and your Guilds, your Cloud9, your Team Liquid, all of those massive teams. And then you've got these little orgs that are battling and struggling just to survive. Just to survive. And it's like, that's the fundamental, is like, it's for me to help them survive through, yes, a bit of financial support, but also that mentoring, in the same way that if they come to me and say, oh yeah, I'd really like, can you give me £10,000 for a sponsorship deal? My first reaction, no, no, because what good's that going to do you? I know what good it's not going to do me, in that I'm going to be skint and broke. So I can't afford to give you that anyway. But if I give you £10,000, you're going to blow that £10,000 in the space of a year, 2 months. So you show me what it costs you. I want to see all your, and then they'll run through their business, and sort of say, this is our overheads, this is this. So then I'll come to an offer of, like, for example, if I'll give you this much, and then that's your running costs covered for the year. So you don't have to worry, like, you will still be here next year. But the deal is that by this time next year, I want to see and need to see the progress, what you've improved, what you've developed, and I want to see your socials in a year's time, because you're not having to pay money on that. So that money that you had before, you need to be spending and using sensibly. And I'm here to help with advice and decision. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to dictate. That's not what sponsorship's about. But I can help. So that's kind of like, the dream is to like maybe see. I'd love to see one of these teams like do really well. But just to continue being part of this amazing community, like the esports community, the education community, those two brought together. Like with the curriculum side of what I can do, but also like the tech side with Yoyotech. I'm just in a good place, you know, in life. I can keep that going all
I can see you.
all for
I
the
can
better.
see a smile from your face. Like,
Yeah, it's
I
good.
aim to be like you as soon as possible. Right now, I'm probably at that stage where, as you said, like the little teams that are battling around and trying to get to the next year, and so they have another opportunity to meet more people, more opportunities, ideas to grow my business. So yeah, I'm definitely.
And that's a good place to be, because as long as you understand that that's where you're at, which you clearly do, it's when lots of people just think and assume that they're going to make an overnight success. Now, some people do,
crazy.
but these people are really lucky. You know, they've come up with an idea, and this idea just
get
kicks off on TikToks. Yeah, and then and then they're overnight billionaires almost. And it's like most businesses aren't like that, and 75% of businesses fail in the first year.
Yeah.
So businesses don't become a success without hard work, you know, and graft. It really is that simple, you know, and lots of people don't appreciate that. Whereas I think from the discussion that we've had and previously as well, you know, you understand that, and you're just building, you know. It's a slow build.
Exactly. That little building blocks and really, I think one of my advice to whoever is doing kind of the same thing is to treat it like a game itself. Talk about esports, like a game in life. Like you're literally making decisions and you know,
and it's sort of like, you know, picking up loot. You know, like the first thing you pick up is, oh, excellent, now I've got a good gun.
Yes.
You know, but I've got no money. So you go, right, how do I get money? Right, okay, you're playing your game, and then you go, right, money, right, get the money, brilliant. And it's the same with business, and you know, I'm same with my radio business, but if you can kind of like just focus on that first contract, and you get that first contract, and it's like, right, that's regular money for you. You know, that's kind of like, that's money that's coming in every month or whatever, which enables me to do this. And then, like, if it's 6 months, a year later, you get the second one. Then there's the third one. And before you know it, you've got 4 or 5. And that 4 or 5 suddenly becomes a realistic business that you can develop and grow, as opposed to, you know, that kind of like, where's the next penny coming from? And we've all been there, you know, we've all been there. You know, and the same, like NTEsports has been around for about 4 years now. But it was only in December that I decided, do you know what, I'm going to hand in the day job, because I've reached a stage whereby I can maintain lifestyle without the day job, because my business can become the day job. You know, and like,
4 years sounds.
And it's you know,
like to that effort.
That's it. I'm working full time, and I used to do 1 day a week on the business, and that 1 day a week was just kind of like topping it over, like making things happen. And then you reach a point where a few things happen, and then you're like, oh, hang on a minute,
I need 2 days.
I'm not going to be able. I need 2 days. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So I need 2 days, and then it's sort of like, can I, you know, at work, can I go down to 3 days? No, not really. Okay, right. Oh,
I have to leave.
Do the leap. Yeah, I'll take the leap. I'm going to do it. And that's make the most of your opportunities. I made that decision, spoke to my wife. My wife said, do it, Nick. Just do it. I know what you like. Took the decision. It was the best thing I ever did. I'm going to let you into a little secret, though. I did think, I was like, oh, do you know what? It'd almost be like semi-retirement, because I'll be doing 2 days at Yoyotech, 3 days at home. 3 days at home. I'll be fine. You know, I'll be able to go and take the dog out for a massive long walk. I'm working harder now than I've ever done, and it's exhausting, but I'm thankful and grateful for it.
Yeah, because you have work. So
exactly.
A lot of people don't even have work. So yeah, it's wow, it's great. Like, it has been a great conversation, Nick. I hopefully can have you on again, you know, in the future, when you develop all these initiatives, especially those funds, you know, that could grow into is a little thing. Those sponsorship, you know, you can gather, you know, people with money maybe who too much money and want to do something with it, and grow the fund and helped great projects and teams.
Again, that's a really good idea, you know, and that's kind of like, that one hadn't got me. I reckon give me another year and that would have got me, that idea. Whereas you've just done it in the space of an hour because of the way your brain ticks. And you go, yeah, but that could turn into this. It's like, oh, do you know what? I never thought about that. So I'm now off to write another business plan. I'm going to go write another business plan.
Do you know who is Simon Squibb? He's been popping around a lot on LinkedIn, on Instagram. The guy who goes around asking, what's your dream?
Yeah.
So yeah, something like that. I mean, he's obviously trying to like basically give a platform to people who are kind of it's too little to buy the starting overheads or running a business, or have no idea how to run a business, and to get his influence on these people by bringing in different entrepreneurs and people and stuff like that to help.
And they make it work. Exactly. But it's no different. Like one of my favourite programmes, and has been for years, is Dragon's Den.
Dragon's Den.
Because Dragon's Den is like that's literally, and I say to students, it's watch Dragon's Den, because you see the stupid side of business where people come in and ask for things that are ridiculous. And then you see the really astute people that come in. Yeah, who come in with these like things, and it's like, that's the way to do it. And then they all go, well, I'll have a bit of that. I'll have it, because they all want a piece of the pie. Mm-hmm. You know, and then suddenly you've got 5 dragons who can turn that pie into the biggest pie in the world when you've just got your little pie on your own. Exactly. And, you know, so I would say, what's better to have like a small chunk of a massive pie or a huge chunk of a tiny pie?
The Apprentice.
Yeah, The Apprentice. I enjoy The Apprentice.
Which is laugh, like, I love it.
Yeah.
Like, he can't be that stupid. Come on.
Yeah. Who are these people?
But yeah, like, lovely stuff. Anyways, yeah, I really hope to have you on again. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no, it'd be a pleasure. It would be.
I really hope people can start listening to everything you've just said, especially schools who are wanting to get involved with these sports, or to talk to you, obviously.
Yeah, I'm always happy to help. I'm always happy to help.
I found Nik on LinkedIn, so you guys can all find him on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on the Polo Experience.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.